And this is basically this plucky bass in SERUM with some drums. Hi guys, SKETI here. Welcome back to a new tutorial. This time we're going to look at how to make a plucky house bass in SERUM with that sort of sawtooth sound. So let's get to it. Alright, so what we've got here is I've just created a line in, well, just with F note and F sharp and G sharp, and then on the end of this I have got a pitch down, and then when we look in SERUM we'll see how much that's pitching down. So let's look at the SERUM bass. So I've already built this bass, but I'm going to go through it step by step, dead quickly, on how it was made. For that pitch bend at the end of the MIDI region there, we've got -2 and +2 on the semitones. So the first thing we've got is a sawtooth. I'm not going to bother with any of the LFO in just yet, but we've got a sawtooth and a sub oscillator as well on the analog sine wave, and both are set to -1 octave. So when I press F1 in the MIDI region, like so, it's going to be at the right octave. The next thing I've added is oscillator B, and this one's set to +1 octave, so that's 2 octaves apart from the other sawtooth. Both of the random are set down, so it always starts from the same point, and this one is FMing into oscillator A, and that's going to be controlled by a macro later on. Next thing I've got is a filter, which is MG Low 24, and that's being controlled by this LFO, which I'll get to in a second. And also I've got the noise oscillator set to bright white, key triggering, one shot mode, and the pitch set to 36 semitones. I've also, on both of these sub and noise oscillators, turned the level all the way down because they're being controlled by the LFO as well. Envelope 1 I have set like this, so basically it's 870 milliseconds long on the decay, and the sustain level is set to -4.7 decibels. Alright, so this LFO, I haven't turned any of the effects on just yet, it's just the compressor so you can hear it. But this LFO, I shall go through now how that's routed. So we have this attached to, well, first of all, explain the LFO. It's set to envelope mode, so it triggers every time the note starts but doesn't loop back on itself, and it's set to quarter note. And that LFO is sent to the noise level and the sub level, so when the note is triggered, it sets that to the highest point and then sweeps straight back down. And it's also going to the filter cutoff, so the frequency cutoff as well. And the cutoff on this is starting at 103 Hz, and it's going all the way to 100% as well, obviously using this LFO sweep. So that's everything that the LFO is controlling in this page. But in the effects page, we'll start with the distortion. I set it to soft clip, kept the drive at the standard level that it's set at when you load it up, and then attach the LFO to it, and also set that dial all the way up to the top at 100%. I've then turned a hyper dimension on, and this LFO is attached to the mix on the dimension, which is like a short reverb, and that's just below halfway, but the LFO is coming down instead. So when the sound starts, there's no dimension at all, but then as the sound goes along, it starts to sweep up to the halfway point on the mix, and the size is set to 2%. I'm re-triggering the hyper, and also the mix is set to 7% as well. The next thing we've got is chorus, and I've done this in a way so that basically the chorus is just one single tone. I've set the rate all the way down to 0 Hz, delay 1 to 1.1 milliseconds, delay 2 to 0.6 milliseconds, the depth to 0.7 milliseconds, feedback to 83%, as a high pass filter at 567 Hz, and then the mix at 39%. And attach the LFO 1 so it sweeps down as the note hits and then back up as the note goes along. Apologies for my blocked nose at the moment, I've got a bit of a cold. So the next thing we've got is the EQ. I have a bell curve notch in the high frequency at 1034 Hz. The gain turned down to -20 decibels. Q pretty much at normal, and then the LFO attached to that, so basically it sweeps up as the note hits. So that's basically to take away any of the sort of high frequencies that I didn't want, and we're going to listen to this sound fully in a second. I've also attached it to the bottom EQ, again as a bell curve, but this is very subtle, and it's also being modulated by these macros as well. And also to end with, I've got a reverb, and that's just set to plate. The size is set to 23%, pre-delay all the way down, low cut set to 41%, high cut set to 74%, damp set to 25%, width all the way up to 100%, and the mix set to 22%. So this is what it sounds like now, so we'll look at these macros in a second. Now the reason why that changed at the end is I've also done some automation on macro 4. So let's have a look at those macros. So macro 4 is basically controlling how much FMing is happening from oscillator B into oscillator A. So that's basically, I just attach that macro to that dial, and it's at a point setting of 47 starting from 23%. So obviously that's what I've controlled with automation. I've then attached, if we just go back to the effects, I've set the EQ peak, so this is attached to the gain of the bottom end EQ, and that's basically if I start playing this back, that's just basically to with that little sweep, just to add a little bit more of a tonality in the bottom end. And then also the EQ frequency, so I could basically sweep between, so I could obviously modulate this and automate it over time, and we can listen to what that sounds like actually. I'll just set it in that middle point because obviously I've set the notch to the center. And then I've also added a macro for the filter cutoff, so if I want it to be fully open, I can control that with this filter cutoff. Now macros are really useful to use because obviously you can automate these over time. Instead of having to add in loads of different bass sounds, you can just pretty much have one bass sound, and then using all of these macros, have it changing over time so it sounds like it's more than one bass sound. And as always, let's listen to this along with some drums so we can hear it in context. I'm just going to turn the sidechain compressor on for that. And this is basically this plucky bass in SERUM with some drums. And obviously with that FM automation sweeping in on macro 4. So there you go guys, a dead quick way on how to make a plucky house bass in SERUM. I'm going to drop the preset below, so obviously you can grab hold of this and see how it's made as well. But thank you for watching this tutorial. Drop a like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you see more of my videos in the future. If you'd like to leave a comment on any suggestions or questions you've got about this, by all means do, and I shall see you next time. Bye.
Everybody jump up, come on! Everybody jump up!